I've been on every possible television program and station when I was doing a lot of TV, but the only thing that mattered to my children was I did an ESPN hit.
There's a lot of talk about AI taking over a lot of things, but at the end of the day, you need humans, and you need humans who are strategic leaders to continue to have these dialogues and mentor teams and grow businesses.
As a policymaker, as a diplomat, as a CEO, and now as an academic, together is I've always been passionately interested in leadership.
One of the things that I've had to stretch my muscle on is that more strategic vision thinking as running a firm and working in partnership with Anne.
Give me a wise and discerning heart, right? Because he knew that couldn't be replaced by smarts or processing power or something like that.
Hello, welcome back.
Hello, good to see you as always.
Good to see you. I missed your face. I haven't seen you in like
I know
a week. It's been crazy.
it's been so long, but I feel like I've been talking about you all week though. So it's like I haven't seen you, but it's just like you've been top of mind because of course it was like, how's Anne? Where's Anne? And so it was good.
We always talk about each other. So even if we're not seeing each other, we're in spirit together always.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, thanks for your patience with our little our moment that we were having. Welcome back to Living Richly with Curo, episode number 48. We're so excited to have you back. My name is Anne McCabe, and I am the CEO and a partner here at Curo Private Wealth. And I'm joined, as always, by my amazing partner who I've missed, Atrisa.
Hi, I'm Atrisa Robert, COO and partner here with Anne. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah. So if you are new, welcome. If you are an OG, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. And as you know, we are here to educate, inspire, inform you along your financial and life journeys. And today we have an awesome guest. We're super excited to have a discussion all around strategy with Dr. John Hillen. So we will welcome him into the studio momentarily. But as we always love to do, we have to do an A-team catch-up because you were gone, I was gone, so I need to hear all the things. We both went away to very cold places.
Why we decided to do that, I could not tell you, but...
Well, I feel like they were decided for us. That's why.
Yes, absolutely.
Had we been choosing the locations, it would not have been Whistler and Lake Placid, New York.
Definitely would have been a beach. Definitely would have been a beach.
Exactly. Exactly. So you go first. How was your trip?
It was long travel day from the DC area out to Vancouver and then to Whistler. It was nice. It was beautiful. Went for a Kestra event for advisors from all over the country. I always say that Kestra always sends us to places that I probably would never just pick to go myself. Whistler would have never been on my radar. I don't ski or snowboard. But I'm glad I had an opportunity to go. It was gorgeous. It was cold, snowy, sleety, rainy. But it was a nice place, beautiful. I learned that there are also rainforests that are not in the tropics. So beautiful forest all around, and got a good opportunity to, of course, network with some other advisors and come back with some good ideas and also have a little fun along the way. I went zip lining, which was incredible. Yeah, I can't wait to share some of that video. But yeah, so it was a nice time. I am tired. I got back super late yesterday. But it was worth it. It was a really nice trip. And, thanks to all the folks at Kestra for having us. Of course, I always represent us when I go, even when we can't go together. But thank you. It was a very nice event.
Yay. Awesome. I bet you had some beautiful winter clothes that you were repping. I always think about you on the golf course. And then I was thinking like, ooh, Whistler, I bet she had some cute winter fits going on.
I had a little après-ski vibe happening.
Not surprising. Not surprising. I love it.
Yeah, I don't ski, but I need to look the part, right? I need to look like I belong. So
100%.
Yeah, but it was good. All right, now tell me about your cold trip.
Yeah. So we went up to Lake Placid, New York. So we were, I think, less than 100 miles away from Montreal. So very, very north New York. We went for my older son's last hockey tournament of the season, and it was incredible. It was very cold, not cold enough that the boys could skate on the lake, which they were very disappointed about. A week prior, they could have skated on the lake, and there was dog sledding on the lake and skating, but we just missed that by about a week. But the boys got to play where the 1980s Miracle on Ice game happened, where the U.S. Beat the Soviet Union in hockey by 4-3 in the Olympics, which was not expected at all, which is why it's called the Miracle. So the boys got to play on that rink. We skated on the rink. They did like a family skate, and it was really fun. The whole tournament was done. Yeah, it was done really well. Lots of fun activities. There was a collegiate tournament going on at the same time. So we got to watch some D1 hockey players, which pretty much should have been like close to professional games. I mean, they were incredible. So I feel like every time the boys got to watch the college kids, they like upped their game, for their next tournament game. So we ended up with a bronze medal for the tournament, which is not bad considering we got crushed by a team by Minnesota because like these kids skate, 80% of the year, I'm pretty sure, in their backyards.
Yeah, they probably came out of the delivery room with ice skates on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, they probably skate to school, they're on skates all the time. So that was it was humbling for our kids, but a good opportunity. Anytime you play in sports a team that's better than you, you typically up your game, right? To kind of meet them. So it was good. And my goalie got MVP for the tournament.
Yay!
Which was nice.
Congratulations, goalie.
Thank you. So he got a cool medal to come home with in addition to the tournament medal. So it was really fun. And we brought the little guy with us, and he had a great time, hanging out with the kids and doing activities around Lake Placid. But Lake Placid is an adorable town, and it was very cool. Long also. We drove and it took us 9 hours. So yeah, we also had long travels, but it was fun.
Good. I'm glad it was a good trip. And the team medaled, and goalie is MVP. All around a success.
Yes, exactly. So fun times, but I'm ready for a break from the tournaments. It's been a long season.
Yeah. So now does hockey stop for you for a while? No. Okay.
No, girl. No, never. So both of them are playing in the spring season, but spring season is much more chill. It's not the main season.
Okay.
So
I think you mentioned this. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just practices and just local games,
right,
like at our home rink. So it will be a lot less painful.
Yeah. Well, good. At least it'll be a little bit of a travel hockey break.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, I see our guest, John. So I'm going to bring him in. Okay, so welcome again. This is Dr. John Hillen, and I am going to read a little bit of his bio. As always, when we have guests, we like to minimize the bio so we can maximize the conversation. But I will let everybody know a little bit more about you, John, in case they're not familiar. So the Honorable Dr. John Hillen is a highly accomplished CEO of several companies, board chairman, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, and award-winning professor who teaches at Duke University, George Mason University, go Patriots, and Hampden-Sydney College. He has a unique combination of strategic leadership experience in business, government, the military, and higher education. He is the author of several books in addition to The Strategy Dialogues, which I have right here.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. He also co-authored a book called What Happens Next? Reinvent Yourself as a Leader Before Your Business Outruns You, and has published countless articles on strategy in publications such as Forbes, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. So welcome, John. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us today.
Great to be with you guys.
Yeah. Welcome. One thing I have to add to the bio, I was telling you, John, that my 13-year-old, when I told him one of your additional accomplishments was you were the military advisor for the first Call of Duty video game. My 13-year-old freaked out because he loves that game. So he was like, that's all you have to say, Mom. Don't worry about any of the other accolades. Just tell them about the Call of Duty. Yeah.
Yeah, none of it matters. I've been on every possible television program and station when I was doing a lot of TV, but the only thing that mattered to my children was I did an ESPN hit,
Yep.
and that was all that mattered.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Nightline with Ted Koppel every night doesn't matter. ESPN, you're
You're
somebody.
cool,
Right.
Dad. You've officially made it. Kids have a way of humbling us, right? So
Yeah.
well, John, you have had quite the career. So, as I just mentioned, a very diverse background. Why did you feel compelled at this stage in your life to become an author and write a book, first about reinventing yourself as a leader, and most recently, a book about strategy?
Yeah, so I've had sort of 4 different careers. And, throughout the course of transitioning in my adult life from one career to another, even between industries within a career, I had to ask myself that question, like, what ties all this together other than, an obvious case of ADHD? What are the themes? What are the themes of your life? And of course, as guys know better than anybody, when you do introspection, it's best to do it with other people.
Mm.
Right? I tell people you should read together, right? Reading alone is like drinking alone. You're reading, but it's not nearly as fun. So same thing with introspection. And what emerged from those discussions with people I really trusted in my own thinking over the course of time is 2 themes tied to all these strange careers as a soldier, as a policymaker, as a diplomat, as a CEO, and now as an academic. Together is I've always been passionately interested in leadership, and I've always been passionately interested in the strategic aspects of organizations. So, what does that mean? I mean, whether it's a 5-person church choir or IBM, the only 2 things both organizations have in common is they're full of a group of people working together, trying to accomplish something. And that's the common element of every human enterprise. So I just got super interested in that. Like, how does that happen? And then a big element of that is, where's this organization going
Mhm.
in the future? And how will we know when we get there? And would it be better than the past? These are all strategic questions. So the combination of these things led me, even as a young soldier, sitting on my tank in the middle of Iraq at the end of Desert Storm. Everybody else is thinking about, okay, how do we get gas for the tank for tomorrow? I wonder when we're going to get home. Will I get a letter today? And I'm thinking about, gosh, how does this war end? Why did we get in the first place? I wonder what happens 10 years from now based on what we've accomplished here in the desert. So like my mind's racing in this hugely unproductive direction as far as my soldiers were concerned. But that's kind of always tied all these things together for me, that way of thinking.
Yeah. Your
Yeah.
soldiers are like, no, that's cool and all. What's our MRE tonight? Like, let's
Right, exactly. What's for lunch?
what's the food situation look like today?
Totally,
Yeah.
totally.
No, I heard someone say that a group of people in an elevator is just a group of people. A group of people in a broken elevator is a team, right? When everybody's focused on the same solution. So I thought that it was a really good analogy to what you're talking about, right? With team and strategy and where are we going, right? What are we doing with this? But so now your
Right.
background spans military, leadership, business, politics, academia. How have these experiences shaped your perspective on strategy? And then what lessons from each of these have you found most valuable?
Yeah, well, the biggest lesson, Atricia, I think, is that a pattern emerged to me in the course of careers, and it applies to everybody in every career. And the pattern is this: when you start your career, you're mostly asked to do technical and tactical things, exercise some skills, get things done, task accomplishment. And that's great. Where would we be if everyday tasks didn't get accomplished? And then at some point in your career, no matter what kind of career it is, you're put in charge of something or somebody, or maybe both. And all of a sudden, the skills that on which you rely to succeed are more strategic and interpersonal in nature rather than technical and tactical. So, when I was I was a public company CEO. If my CFO hired 4 new accountants for the finance department, the first one promoted 2 years later would probably be the best accountant with the best skills. The one promoted in the next round, maybe 4 or 5 years into their career, would be the best leader, not necessarily the best accountant. And I get a lot of athletes in my classes and when I talk to them, I say, "Is the team captain always the best athlete?" And they're like, "Oh gosh, no, never. They're the best leader." I'm like, "Aha." Okay, so it's the same in life. So if this is in fact the case, even the CTO of a big tech company and I run tech services firms. So I've worked around a lot of, techies. Even a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, they don't write a line of code. They don't do network and systems design. They simply oversee big groups of people working together on massively complicated technological endeavors. So their job's entirely strategic and interpersonal, even though they grew up in a highly engineer-oriented, detail-oriented, task-oriented, expertise-oriented environment. And so I tell you, if that is in fact the case, if you believe me and you can trust me, and you can trust the human experience of a couple of billion people who've gone before us, that ultimately your success, your happiness, your full flourishing as a professional is going to depend on your strategic and interpersonal skills. Where's this organization going? How do I get people to work together? As opposed to your expertise in certain fields and all the certifications you've stacked up in your life. Then why not train for it now? Like, why not start thinking about that now? 80%-ish of corporate training is oriented on giving people more technical and tactical skills. When we all know, especially you guys running an organization, right? It's the strategic and interpersonal skills that are going to get you to the finish line. So I think that's the big theme that has emerged to me out of all these different aspects of my career, because it crosses all of them and is common to all of them.
You know what comes to mind with that, John, and I think this is very relevant to today's economy and so much of the talk around artificial intelligence, is the more technical you are, the more likely you are to be replaced by AI. The more strategic you are and the, better interpersonal skills that you have and the better leader you are, you're much less likely to be replaced, because in our opinion anyway, especially in the financial world, there's a lot of talk about AI taking over a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you need humans, and you need humans who are strategic leaders to continue to have these dialogues and mentor teams and grow businesses. So I wonder if that is coming up at all with your students, because I'm sure there's a lot of talk around how do you differentiate yourself in this new economy with AI in particular.
Yeah, gosh, it's a great point. And I'll give you an example from my book. So I talk in the book about what does it mean to think strategically. And I have a lot of references and to the research and things in there. And the brain science shows that you literally use a different part of your brain to think strategically. So the left side of your brain is that analytical, data processing, break problems down, math, sciencey brain, right? It's really good at processing data. The right side of your brain is that more creative, art of the possible, oriented towards the future, embracing the ambiguity and like contingent nature of the future. The more artistic side of your brain, if you will. So two phenomenon here. One is the potential of AI, which I know very well. The last company I ran, sold to Booz Allen a couple years ago, built AI and machine learning models to process signals intelligence for parts of the U.S. government. So crunching data, processing things quickly, that's where AI will really come in handy. And I think it'll ultimately be a huge gift to humankind if we manage it well. So people shouldn't be, I think, freaked out by it.
Teresa, you hear that?
What it
She's freaked out by it.
But what can it do? Form meaningful relationships, make judgment calls that are based upon wisdom rather than smarts, appreciate the wacky chemistry of the range of human emotions, right? Being emotionally intelligent in a turbulent environment. And these are the things ultimately that people rely on. There's a reason. So I'll go back to this, great biblical story. God says to Solomon, he's like, look, I got these really difficult, they're tough people to manage. So I'm going to give you one gift to help, because Solly, you're in charge of these guys. Solomon doesn't ask to be the smartest person. He doesn't ask to be the strongest person. He doesn't ask to be the healthiest person. He doesn't be the most dynamic and charismatic. He says, give me the gift of wisdom. Give me a wise and discerning heart, right? Because he knew that couldn't be replaced by smarts or processing power or something like that. So I think a lot of times some of our answers to today's questions are kind of an ancient wisdom, right? So I think people that learn how to just like in the gym, man. You and I go to the same gym. Like I've got an amazing trainer there, and I've got a figure out a way to really get going, to fire up a certain muscle that's like my problem muscle. And the trainer shows me do this exercise, that muscle fires up. It's the same thing with your strategic mindset. Everybody has the strategic thinking muscle. Everybody can light up that part of their brain, the right side of the brain, the creative, relationship forming, strategically thinking side of the brain. They just need to know how to activate it, and then what machine to go to in the gym of life to work it out.
Yeah. Which is nice to know that you don't have to be born with this gift, right? I mean, some people are born, I think, with the inclination, or it comes easier to them. But if that's not you, it is a learnable muscle that you can work and execute.
Definitely something.
Completely. In fact, I cite a study in there that shows only 4% of executives are naturally strategic thinkers. In other words, if I'm trying to convince you two of doing something the way I propose, I'll connect all these dots and tell you about why it'll put us in a place of advantage way in the future and how all the moves interconnect, as opposed to saying we should do it my way because it's due Friday. Right? That's a very short-term, immediate thing, but I'll try to connect that. Only 4% naturally go there. The good news is, as you pointed out, is everybody can learn to do that. And everybody wants to. I tell a story in the book of my co-author of my last book, who's a top executive coach. He's like Tory Burch's executive coach. He's coached all these amazing, famous people. And he was working with someone, and the directors said, well, is that executive, is she ready for the boardroom? Is she ready for the C-suite? A bunch of sort of old white guys. And he said, yes, she is. She's amazing. He laid out her executive competency model and how she's progressed, ready to be C-suite level, boardroom material. And one of the old directors says, well, I'm not sure she thinks strategically. So my colleague said to the director, what does that mean to you to think strategically? And the guy couldn't articulate it. Right? So I said, how can you hold her accountable for something
you can't even define?
Right.
Exactly. So everybody knows they need it. We have very little training on it. So what I'm trying to do in this book is make it accessible for everybody. Get in there, find this muscle, work it out.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's helpful, especially for someone like me who is very much a left brain. I love math. I love science.
Right.
I love spreadsheets. They make me happy, right? When when things align and pivot tables work. And one of the things that I've had to stretch my muscle on is that more strategic vision thinking, as running a firm and working in partnership with Anne, having to not be as task oriented and analytical and more big picture and visionary. But it definitely has been a true exercise for me over the last several years. So it's helpful to know that I'm not the only person that is struggling in that area.
Yeah, not at all. And you've nailed it. And you've already shown your right brain's on fire, because the first quality of like high emotional intelligence, self-awareness, right? And then being able to apply that to a social awareness, right? So you're linking all of these things up. They're complementary. I think that's one of the things. One of the points I try to make in the book is, if we didn't have things done in an orderly way and problems analyzed and broken down, the world would fall apart. On the other hand, the strategic mindset's a little bit the opposite. So unlike an analytical mindset, we don't break problems down. Strategists pull everything back together. They look out in the world for patterns that are emerging. They try to see how it might shape their future. They define what it means to more of a point of advantage, and so on. But you have to be able to do both. I mean, think about what you guys do for your clients, right? You have to be able to provide both sets of answers. You have to be able to crunch the numbers, do the math, really give people comfort in the certainty of that. But you also have to help them chart a way, and we call it the future because it hasn't happened yet, right? That's what's scary about life. And that's such a huge part of the planning you do with your clients. So, this combination of things is something the best organizations try to get their head around. And for people in math, science, engineering, finance, accounting, operations management type fields, strategy can be hard because there's no right answer, right? And like some of my students, I'm teaching the core strategy course in George Mason's MBA program right now. I taught it last night, in fact. And for students that are great at finance and accounting, they want the numbers and they want the formula, and there's one right answer for the class. And I always tell them, there's no right answer in strategy. There's only the answer you give and how sound your thought process was to support your answer. And then you take your chances, because everything's an intelligent bet about the future as it unwinds in front of you. So different ways to think, but the best organizations, including the way they combine different talents on their team. If you think about strength finders, how do you do like complementary talent matching? Have both of these sets of skills.
Yeah. So a lot of organizations, I think, struggle to translate strategic plans, what may look good in a business plan or, in a document, into actual action. So what are some of the common pitfalls that leaders face when they are executing strategy, and how can they overcome those pitfalls?
Yeah, no, this is, I've watched this over and over again because I'll lead off sites for companies, to help them get their strategy together. And they'll say, I'll say, I'll check back in with you in a year. They're like, yeah, please check back in. We're going to be so excited to show you. And I'll check back in. I'm like, what happened to the amazing offsite? We had trust falls and we all went out and got to know each other. And we were team building all over the place. We did this great strategy work. And they're like, oh, and they give me the metaphorical equivalent of it's still on the shelf. Right. So that's one challenge, is people just don't execute it. Part of that is organizations confuse true strategic thinking and some plans around that with their annual budget drill. Okay. I get a lot of calls in December. People say, it's time to do strategic planning. I'm like, why? Because it's September? I'm like, do you always let the calendar determine when the environment that affects the livelihood of your people and your entire enterprise changes? It's always right on time on the calendar. I'm like, no, you're doing your annual budget drill. I get it. It's important. It's not strategy. Okay. And I try to tease these things out. The other thing that I think that teaches people is results leak out of your strategy. And I have a whole chapter in the book showing the research and data behind that, because it's predictable. And I have an image of a balloon going up with your new strategy floating into the bright new future you've identified. And then holes appear in the balloon, and the effect of what you want starts leaking out. A vision communicated without sufficient clarity, confusion about roles and responsibilities in the new thing that you're doing. Strategy almost always involves some new thing, that you're layering onto the organization. Stovepipes with people protecting bureaucratic priorities from the old regime and not wanting to change to go into the new initiative. Confusion about who has information rights and decision-making powers. And it's all very predictable down to, you lose 4.3% from this and 7.1% from that. A study of hundreds of strategies and their outcomes. The great thing is, just like you can in golf, you can go to school on somebody else's putt if they putt ahead of you on a similar line. You can go to school on everybody else's mistakes. So I've given readers all the data around the common mistakes, and then a bunch of suggestions for if that's going to happen, because we're all human beings and it happens in every organization full of human beings. Here's the best way to guard against it and avoid it and get the most out of your strategic changes. So execution is a little bit overlooked. Like all the sexiness and fun is in the planning piece. Execution there's a kind of drudgery about it. But it's really, really important.
Yeah. And I will say one of the things I love about the book is there's a beautiful combination of lots of data and research and the studies, but the way that you write it in like a story format, I think is extremely approachable, because as you said, to kick us off, the definition of strategy is sometimes hard to wrap your head around and really articulate and define. So I think you did a beautiful job of balancing those two things in the book. So
great. Thanks. I also found I hope you liked it. I found this amazing illustrator.
Yeah. The illustrations are incredible. Yeah. I was going to ask you who did those, but we only have.
She's extraordinary. Amber Anderson, because we use a lot of diagrams and strategy. I mean, I can't order lunch without doing a big 2x2 matrix up on the wall and analyzing it. And so, she turned all that into really fun and I think elegant diagrams.
Yeah. Incredible.
Fantastic. So you emphasize the importance of continuous strategic conversations among leadership teams. Ann and I, we have lots of calls and meetings and check-ins, but pretend for a moment you're coaching the two of us, right? What are some practical ways that we can foster these kinds of dialogues without it turning into endless meetings?
Yeah. Yes. Great point. And, most meetings are about getting something done like today, this week, by this afternoon, this quarter, right? So here's the way. let me start with what you shouldn't do, but what almost all organizations do is only do it during a dedicated time frame, like an offsite. Our big strategy offsite is going to be in 2 months, right? And I always tell organizations, I'm like, good, man, I hope the world waits for your offsite, right? I hope they're on your schedule, because you need to relook your strategy every time some fundamental assumption about how you thought you'd operate and the world in which you'd operate changes. I mean, look at what's happening economically right now, right? I mean, these are all for you guys in your business. These are enormous changes.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's no change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's steady Eddie, right?
Things are fine.
And it'll always be thus in your field. Think about 2008 and that whole period. So yeah, anytime the outside world changes in such a way, consumer trends, technology trends, economic issues, political issues, regulatory, environmental, legal, you name it. But if something really affects you, you need to refresh your strategic thinking, because it has an impact on you. So I encourage organizations, instead of waiting to do it at the offsite, like it's some special thing. It's a special thing that you have to do in a windowless conference room at the Hyatt down the street, right? Or if you're better, at some lovely little B&B out in the countryside. Instead of waiting, integrate it into your everyday life. In the same way, I don't like it when organizations say, we're going to pull back and have an ethics day, because I teach business ethics. And we're going to talk about it. I'm like, why don't you talk about it every day? Why are you having a special day for it? That makes it seem special and odd.
Yeah.
Today we will be virtuous. And then we're going to go
tomorrow.
Back to right. So how do you integrate a strategy to, Teresa, your question, how do you integrate a strategy conversation? Have a strategy moment in every meeting. I was on the board of a nuclear company for 10 years, super obsessed about safety. Good, right?
We hope.
Important.
They started every meeting with a safety moment. Someone would talk about how they almost slipped on the ice in their home one day, and they realized, I can't run out of the house without checking that footing first. It would just remind everybody, we're in the safety business. So you have a strategy moment in a meeting. You have a meeting, you're talking about how to get this thing done by the end of the week. And then someone in the meeting, encourage a junior person to do it, says, cool, when we get this, we're going to work really hard this week. Sounds like we're going to put in some extra hours. When we get that thing done, remind me again of how it's going to help contribute to where we said we wanted to be a year from now. And you have a 90-second discussion at the end of the meeting, reminding everybody how today's activities tie into what everybody agreed to about where this organization is going in the future.
Yeah.
A little reminder that we're always thinking strategically in this organization.
Yeah. I love that, because it's not like you need to add additional meetings. To your point, it's not something that you talk about once a year on your annual offsite. It's like just embedded in the culture and in the conversations and in all the meetings you're already having.
It just needs to be part of your corporate hygiene. Yeah. I think about, because I'm ancient, I now have this, long bedtime routine, right? I'm stretching, I'm supplementing, I'm calming my brain, right? All that stuff. I'm biohacking my way into a good night's sleep. Well, it's the same thing. Like it's good, it's healthy, it's great. How do you integrate strategic thinking into your daily routine, your daily hygiene, your stretching, your workout, however you want to characterize it?
Yeah, love that. Oh my gosh. Well, we could talk all day. So this has been an awesome conversation, and we so appreciate it. And we're lastly going to ask you the question that we ask all of our guests at the end of our podcast. Teresa and I have also answered it on our first episode, but what does living richly mean to you, John?
Yeah. So, I'll get all professorial on you here,
please.
Since I'm a professor now, and I mentioned ancient wisdom, and I'm glad to see there seems to be a current trend where people are accessing it. Like I see, among a lot of younger men, you see like flocking to stoicism.
Yeah, I love stoicism. We just talked about stoicism. What was it, last week, Teresa?
Last week, I think.
Right. And that can also be like, it can be a little bit unguided missile if it's done dangerously. There's a danger to treat. Wisdom is there because it's deep and profound and based in a lot of things. So you don't want to reduce it all to fortune cookie phrases, right? So I try to guide some of my students, but Aristotle had a great concept, and the Greeks in general had they have 4 words for love, because there's different kinds of love. And they have multiple words for happiness. And I think when we think of happiness, we think living richly is being happy. We think of it in terms of pleasure, things, and all the rest. The more potent Greek word that Aristotle talked about is called eudaimonia, and it means like full human flourishing. That's happiness. It's a different kind of happiness than just pleasure and smiling a lot. And so, what does full human flourishing mean? Everybody has to define it for themselves. But for me, it means, and he defined it as living well. What does living well mean? Like, it's like living richly, living well. Well, for me, I try to integrate. It's got to have a component of service, because I feel fulfilled. I feel fully flourishing when I'm, as I mentioned, with a life of leadership and being strategically oriented, of living an organizational life, which means you're living a life full of people in a community trying to do something together. So for me, there's an element of service in that. And now as a professor, right, kind of giving back, bringing along, trying to get everybody to arrive at the destination together, having accomplished something important, and in generally good spirits, or in the case of when I was in the military in combat, alive, right, and going home having accomplished something important, being proud of it. So, everybody has a different answer to this, but for me, the answer is that combination. What does it mean to live well, live virtuously, live richly? It's that are you reaching your full potential? Are you involving other people? Are you full in a web of meaningful relationships? So I love about being a mentor, a coach, a professor. It's the meaningfulness of the relationships you develop with students, not just when they're your students, but for the rest of their lives in many cases. And so that's how I define living richly, whether it was in a corporate environment or whether it's in an academic environment or even in a policy environment.
Love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Such a fun question to ask, because there's so many different ways. And of all of our guests, they always answer it, in a completely different way, which is awesome. Every one of us has a little bit different of a definition. So thank you for sharing.
You're definitely the first to reference Aristotle. So congrats.
This is true.
Yeah, exactly. He's coming back.
He's coming back. Making a comeback, that old Aristotle. All right, John. Well, that wraps us for today for our conversation. Again, we could talk for hours and hours, but we so appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us. Where can people find your book if they're interested in deep diving into the world of strategy?
Sure. So the Strategy Dialogues is really probably Amazon's the best place to get in. There's a lot of reviews on there too from people. People are just kind. Like I saw reviews on there, I was like, wow, they're thinking, more richly about the book than I was, and creating and being its author. And then johnhillen.com is my website, where there's a bunch of stuff on there of all the other work I do. Just JOHNHILLEN.com. So yeah, people can find out all sorts of things there. And then of course, pretty much the only social media I'm down to these days is LinkedIn.
Yep.
Because everything else just seems to be spinning up into the atmosphere without much point. So
you're not a big Xer, huh?
No. Yeah, it kind of just got we have a concept, in order to clear your mind to think strategically, separating the signal from the noise.
Oh yeah, we talk about that a lot.
Oh, the noise.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So you guys. So yeah, there's a lot of noise there, and not much signal these days.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I just let me also just pause and say thank you for what you guys are doing. I think you're just really empowering people to have exactly the kind of conversation we had about their lives, and they need to be in a position to do that. And so the work you're doing, I think, is tremendously important to help them get to that point where they're having this kind of conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We feel very fortunate that we get to work with clients every day and get to have awesome conversations with people like you. And so we feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to do what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Well, before we let you all go, just a couple reminders. Send us your questions. We love answering your financial questions on our podcast. So you can send those in to podcast@Curo Private Wealth. And if we answer your question on the podcast, we will send you an Amazon gift card as a thank you. So keep those questions rolling in and give us the likes, the subscribe so you know when we drop new episodes, which is every Friday, every week. And thanks again for tuning in. Until next week, live richly. Thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Friendly reminder that this is for informational purposes only. For additional information, please visit us at www.curoprivatewealth.com. Until next time, live richly.